Hello, everybody. It's 2 o'clock, and so we are going to get going. We have a lot to cover today. I want to welcome you. I am Pam Gackstetter, City Clerk and Election Administrator for the City of Apple Valley, and you are about to go through the 2018 Election Judge Training. So thank you very much for being here. If you haven't been here before, I just want to make sure everyone's familiar with our building. If you need to use the restrooms, if you go out this door, head towards your right. Before you get to the stairs, there are some water fountains on your left, and the restrooms are just beyond that. We do have refreshments in the back. All of you should have signed in. You should have picked up a certificate. You should have also picked up a red folder, a pen, and a 2018 polling place guide. And this is really important, valuable information for you. You also should have submitted your payroll documentation with our HR payroll folks. And I just want to cover a few things with you on that. Your payroll packet was mailed to you with your duty assignments. And just to cover a few things, election judge compensation is not subject to federal and state income tax withholding, and it is not subject to Social Security and Medicare tax withholding unless you exceed $1,800 in 2018, and hopefully you're all not going to work that many hours on Election Day, although we'll get quite a few hours out of you at the general and the primary for that purpose. And then a W-2 will not be issued unless you earn more than $600. And so come 2019, when you're doing your taxes, we don't want to hear from you saying, where's my W-2? You're not going to get one. And pay is still required to be reported as taxable income when you file your income tax, and you will be paid within 30 days of working. And Joyetta and Mary will be here during the first break to answer any questions you may have. I also have Joyetta's name and her phone number. She's our payroll person on your agenda should you have additional questions. So, besides our great payroll folks and my amazing judges who are here, I also have a wonderful team who work with me. Elections takes a village. It takes a whole village to conduct an election. And working with me today, I've got Stephanie Marshall. She's my deputy city clerk. She's in the back. Hi, Stephanie. And she does a great job with our absentee ballots, and she does a lot with the judge list. So many of you may have talked with her to schedule training, or she'll broadcast messages out to you and records when you sign up to be an election judge. And then I've got Janae Marthy. She's my administrative assistant or specialist, and she works a lot with supplies and testing. And so she's busy, especially with the new equipment we have this year, and you'll get some hands-on experience with that. And then we've got Mary Mueller. She is the former city clerk. I call her my election expert, and she helps Janae quite a bit with testing, and she has been a mentor and friend for me for 27 years of working with the elections back when I started with the City of Apple Valley. So I've got an awesome team, and I want to thank all of you for being part of that team. Your election judge training today, as I said, is going to take about 3 hours, and it will include covering election judge qualifications, the role of election judge, new laws, new practices, opening poll activities, election judge duties, setup operations of election equipment. We're going to briefly go over the ICE. That's the tabulator. That was new 2 years ago, but we're going to really focus on the poll pads, which are new this year. We're also going to look briefly at closing poll activities, and we are going to talk about how to use your 2018 polling place reference guide. That's going to be a key book. And I think that is about all we need to cover right now. The only thing I do want to say is I normally do about a 3-hour training going to in-depth on how to do everything. I've condensed my training down to an hour. I'm going to talk as fast as I can and still have you understand me. And so that we have 2 hours of training on the poll pads, all right? So if things are going pretty fast, anything that you think you missed, you can learn it by reading in the 2018 Polling Place Reference Guide. All right. I have so many mice up here. I got to see which one. Oh, that's the one. All right, I'm going to set these to the side. Last night, by the end of training, I was like, okay, which mouse am I on? Okay. Again, thank you for joining our team this year. As you know, the primary election is August 14th, and the general election is November 8th, and you are very important and play a very important role. Who can be an election judge? Well, you can be an election judge, and you must be eligible to vote in Minnesota. You must be able to read, write, and speak English. You must be appointed by the City Council, and everyone in this room was appointed on June 28th, and you must be trained and certified as an election judge. It requires a minimum of 2 hours of training, and you will receive that today. We ask that you declare your party affiliation if associated with a major party, and that is important because several of the tasks on election day require one person of each party in order to complete the task, and the law requires that there is a minimum of one person of each major party in the polling place. And of course, here in Minnesota, we have two parties, major parties of the DFL and Republican. Who cannot be an election judge? You cannot be an election judge if you are a candidate appearing on the ballot, a spouse, parent, step-parent, child, stepchild, sibling, or step-sibling of a candidate or of another election judge serving in the same election or serving in the same precinct at the same time. You cannot be an election judge if you are living with a candidate who is appearing on the ballot, they call that domiciled, or if you are a challenger appointed to contest voter eligibility. And if any of those things apply to you, please see Janae during our break. And if it's a matter of you are living with another judge, and we can't identify that by name, sometimes we can tell if the names are the same. If you see two Andersons together and it's the same address, but sometimes if the names are different, we don't catch it. We will try to reassign you. Yes?
The date of the election, I had November 8th.
Oh, it is November 6th. Yeah. Good. You get the first candy. I just wanted to see how smart you guys are, and you are very sharp, so thank you. Okay. What is your role? You are to uphold Minnesota election laws, administer the election fairly, respect voter privacy, perform various election judge duties, and use disability etiquette. The disability etiquette, and I do have a handout in your red folder. Read that, and that will give you some important tips. What is your conduct? You should be patient, honest, and respectful, be courteous and professional, be impartial, refrain from sharing personal opinions, do not attempt to create an advantage for a party or candidate, and do not read newspapers, magazines, devices, or other materials that may influence voters. The reason we call those out in particular as it gets close to the election, because oftentimes candidates have got ads or there are other things in the newspaper at that time. If you hear a voter making a comment, we ask that you ask them to refrain. If they don't, speak to your head judge. If they still don't, the head judge will call me and I will ask you to leave. What are some of the new election laws and practices? So the biggest thing that we've got, and the big part of our training today, will be talking about the new poll books. And a poll book is simply an electronic roster. So in the old days, we had the paper roster. We're going to now be doing that on an iPad. The roster registration judge duties are combined, and I know that scares everybody. Oh no, we always have the roster people over here in the registration. We will work through that, and we'll talk about that as we explain how the poll pads work. The ballot discrepancy log is now incorporated into the regular incident log. We've got many new forms and envelopes, and you do not need to complete the statistics portion of the results tape. So in the past, you'd have to print 4 or 5 tapes, and then you'd have to transfer all those numbers. You won't have to do that anymore. The county's saying, oh, yep, our summary form is enough. So you'll still have the judges sign the results tape, but all the statistics won't need to be entered on there. So that's a good thing. And then we are going to review the United States Supreme Court decision regarding what may be worn in the polling place. What do you need to do before the election? You need to vote absentee if necessary. You only need to vote absentee if you are working outside your precinct the whole day. If you're working in the morning outside of your precinct, you have the afternoon to vote, and vice versa. If you're working in your precinct that day, you will have time to vote that day. If you do need to get an absentee ballot application, Stephanie can help you with that during the break. I also want you, what do you do before pre-election? You're going to read your reference guide. That's right. Important. There's a lot of important information in there, and you won't be able to tell me it isn't important unless you read it. Okay. What else do you need to do? Dress comfortably but appropriate for public service. Pack your lunches, snacks, and dinner. Some of you are going to start 6 o'clock in the morning and not be done till 9 o'clock at night. Remember your medications, your glasses, arrange for your household needs and pets, and arrange for transportation. What are the various election judge duties? We have head judges, greeter judge, which we are not suggesting there's a need for probably at the primary, but absolutely will be using at the general. There's a roster registration judge combined now, demonstration judge, which is often combined with the ballot judge, and then the ballot counter tabulator judge. I am going to be using 3 words interchangeably throughout our training today. This is the tabulator, this is the ballot counter, this is the ice machine. And so whenever I mention any one of those, that's this piece of equipment, and that's the piece of equipment that counts our ballots. All judges must wear a name tag. They are provided in your supplies. It will include your first name, not your last, and your role as an election judge or head judge. Ask you not to put stickers on top of your name tags because we do use those tags again. And if you get hot and take your sweater off, make sure you transfer your name tag to your clothing because it is a requirement by law that you have it on. Okay, is this their first time? Thank you for joining our team. I will see you all again in 2 years. How many of you have been here more than 6 times or more than 5 times? All right, great, very much. So I'll tell you, being an election judge, from the folks that I have a great privilege to work with, they tell me what a joy it is to do this public service and work with the people in your own community. We know you're not doing it because you're making $1 million, but there's a sense of pride to work and be a part of this very important task that everyone across the country is doing. So as new people, thank you very much. Hope to see you again. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's very interesting to really learn about what happens behind the scenes. And for my veteran judges, thank you for coming back, and we hope to have you stay for many more years because it is a cumulative knowledge. You learn some the first go around, next cycle you learn more, and the more and more you learn, it's so interesting, and we're glad to have you here. Okay, what else is your resource? 2018 Polling Place Reference Guide. That's a great resource. It's an interesting read for kids, grandkids, read it to your husband at night. And then you've got training handouts and, of course, city staff. The only thing I do want to tell you on the back of this, I'm going to give you 2 quick numbers. The top one, the election official number, is 651-438-4305. 651-438-4305. And the next number for Apple Valley is 952-953-2500. 952-953-2500. The top number again is 651-438-4305. And then for fire and police, should you need it, is 911. Okay. I'm going to skim over the tasks of judges very quickly, but some of the tasks that head judges do, they're going to contact every judge working in their precinct prior to the election. They pick up precinct supplies. They're the lead official in the polling place. They administer the oath of office both to the morning judges and the PM judges. Don't forget that. They assign duties. They supervise other judges. They oversee opening and closing activities, and they record incidents in the incident log. And I have a saying, when in doubt, write it down. This is what an incident log is. If you look at it here in the middle section, it says, record any unusual events, be as specific as possible, include voter ID if applicable, and then, of course, record the resolution. So if you look at that time of incident, I guess on this side, if I'm 10:15, I'm going to just give you a couple scenarios that would be included. Tabulator stopped working, opened the auxiliary slot and contacted the city clerk at 11 a.m. A new ICE machine was set up and running. Another example would be at 11:43, a sample paper ballot was found in a voting booth, and at 11:43 it was thrown away. The next example, 2:29, question Nick Baker, voter ID, because we have a voter ID. We list his number, and I'll show you where to get that later, regarding a roster felony challenge, and at 2:30 p.m. the felony challenge was cleared. So it is going to be a log of all of the things that are unusual happening in your polling place, so if any questions come up later, we can have a recollection. It gets to be a long day, and it's a good way to keep track of things. Other responsibilities of the head judge include responding to voter challenges, resolving issues and questions, including complaints, reviewing news media credentials, announcing opening and closing of polls, complete election worksheets and forms, return the results and supplies to City Hall, and there are many others. And if you are interested in being a head judge someday, please see Janae during the break. Okay, what is the schedule? Your schedule was sent to you with this training schedule. It's that yellow sheet. If there was no indication or notation after your name, it means you work all day. That means you start at a minimum of 6 o'clock a.m. and work until after polls close. Polls close at 8, but there are after poll activities that can take you an hour or more. If you're an AM judge, you start in the morning at 6 a.m., you work till 1:30. If you're SS judge, there's only 2 of those, Westview and Greenleaf, here for the primary. It means you work from 6 a.m. to 6:30. It does not mean you are school security. It means we add 1 extra person in the polling place when children are present. You will get to rotate around all of the tasks that everybody else does. It's just that you have a little bit different hours. And then the last one is the PM judges, 1:30 to close. And then alternates. If you're an alternate, you very likely might have already gotten assigned. I already still have a few more cancellations where I'm going to assign a few more alternates. So alternates are very important. You're very likely to work. And all of you will take an election judge oath of office, and you're going to sign that oath in the morning. When you get to the polling place, make sure you park in the back of the parking lot, leave spots closest to the door available for the voters so they can get in and out most quickly. And Precinct 6, if you work there, Old National Bank allows our election judges to park in their parking lot and just walk across to the polling place. The door is really close to the bank because there's not that much parking at Augustana. And that's just official certification sheet. Okay, opening the polls. What's the first thing you do when you get to the polling place at 6 o'clock in the morning? You're going to verify all of the materials that are there are for your precinct. You're going to make sure that your tabulator is for your precinct. I got to watch, this one's hooked up. It's going to have, this is our one, but yours will say you're like precinct 1 or whatever precinct you are. You're going to have a number of poll pads. They would say, these haven't been marked yet, but they're going to say precinct 1. You're going to make sure everything is for your precinct because you can't start setting stuff up if by accident something got dropped off at the wrong place. Then 2 judges are going to verify the seals, and Janae, I'm going to have you come down because we're going to do a little bit of show and tell here. But I will have sealed the cards in your tabulator, and they have a number, I'm just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, this one says 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're going to verify, yep, Pam said that she sealed it with that. We know no one's tampered with it because the numbers are still the same. You're going to set up the poll pads and jetpack equipment. You're going to set up the voter equipment. You're going to ensure that all the compartments in the tabulators are empty, and Janae and I are going to show you those right now. First of all, your head judges will be issued a key, but you might be a ballot tabulator or a ballot judge, a tabulator judge during the day, and so they may give you the key if something needs to be done. But there's a fob and a key. There are several places that you need to unlock. When the key is upright, like an I, it lets you get in, okay? So this way allows you to get in. So I'm just unlocking the top. I just want you to see that real quickly. And then we are not going to do this setup because we want to spend time on the poll pads. Your head judges will be given an instruction sheet on how to set these poll pads up, but one head judge will work with a non-head judge person to set this up while the other head judge is supervising the other activities happening in the poll place. So it is important for all of you to kind of know. In this back compartment, this is your auxiliary compartment. This is the spot that you would open up should power go down or the calculator stop working. Inside is a pouch that looks like this. In this pouch is this equipment. Janae, let's, so everyone can see. So there's the screen. The screen is in there, okay? And it's going to be set up. That's the assistive voting technology. I don't know what that is. So the first thing that has to be done is all of the external equipment must be set up first. The pouch does not get put back in the auxiliary compartment. The jelly pad is here. The headphones are here. We do not hook the headphones up. We just leave them available. If someone needs them, they will use them. The key to plug everything in is here. If you would need to use the auxiliary compartment during the day, which would mean if the system would gone down, I just moved a slot here, and that would allow someone to put a ballot in there if the machine wasn't working. But unless we need it, we're going to keep that shut because we don't want people by chance putting a ballot in there. We would lock this back up. I'm not going to take the time to do that because I'm short on time today. And then this is the main area. This is where the ballots are deposited as people put the ballots into the system. They're going to fall in here, but inside on the left side, up high, there is an arm that kind of is like this. And if you pick up on it, it will open up. And I don't know if you can see, I kind of picked it up. That's where the write-ins will be at the general election. Before you open that up, if you're assigned to do that, you want to take all the ballots from the bottom out, because they're the not write-ins. You don't want the write-ins coming and fall on top of the not write-ins. We want to keep the write-ins separate from the not write-ins because you'll need to be looking at those write-ins in particular. To hook that back up, you're going to bring it up here, kind of hook it into a latch. And now that's how that is. During the primary, when we send ballots out to your precinct, we might put a box or two in here. But part of your job in the morning is to open up all the compartments, make sure there's nothing in there. Just a place to store them as we transport them. And the other thing is when you start this machine in the morning, your head judges have information on it, but you kind of pick it up and it kind of has a little bit of a, you got to give it a little bit of a tug. You hear some solenoids going on, that's it starting up. There is a kickstand for it, and then this is just kind of like the little privacy area. So as it goes ahead and enters, that's what that kind of looks like. And that's as much of the ICE setup as I'm going to do for you today, because your head judge will work with you and there's very specific steps that you're going to follow. I guess the one thing I do want to also point out is when your head judge starts this machine, it's going to print out a zero tape, and this is one of the tasks that you have to do, and it's in here. It's the second one from the it says run the zero totals tape, do not tear it off. So it will print out a long tape of everybody on the ballot, the way exactly it reads in order, the races and the candidates as the ballot appears. And one of the functions that you have to do is two people are going to compare the tape. I mean, it would be over here, and I'm saying Republican Party, federal office, United States Senator, and I'm going to read it, and you're looking at the tape. Two people are comparing the whole way through, making sure everything matches up, matches good. You fold it up, you put it back in the compartment here. So you're making sure everything is right. The other thing you're going to be doing is two people are going to be doing it. They're going to be turning on the AVT, accessible voting technology, and that will bring the ballot up in a visual form. And someone's going to be using a real ballot, and then another judge is going to be looking at it, and we're going to say, we're going to read it off and compare. Yep, we agree that it matches exactly what is visual as what a real ballot is. And then you're going to mark a ballot. Now, you're going to have one DFL person and one Republican, but together you have to decide it is a primary. You can't only vote for one party, and you can't cross over. Just agree to vote for somebody on the races, and then you're going to actually put it in here and mark it, and then you're going to pull it out and say, is this what we agreed on? Yes, it was. Then, this is a really key point, and I want to make sure. That was just a test to make sure the printer was working. You take that test ballot that you did before the polls open, and you put it in an accessible test ballot envelope. You're going to just put it in here. It won't fit, so you're going to have to probably fold it. It's proof that you tested the equipment to make sure that it printed properly. All right? So, let me catch up on so I said you're going to run the zeros total tape, not tear it off. You're going to compare the offices, names, and questions. You're going to test the accessible voting device. You're going to follow the instructions on the handout. And the handout looks like this, and it walks you through everything. Your head judge will have this in their paperwork, and you're going to be working with a head judge. At least one judge is going to be working. You're going to follow the instructions in the handout to test one ballot. Like I said, you're going to compare the offices and candidates to those displayed on the screen and through the headphones. If there's discrepancies, call the city clerk. Do not insert the test ballot into the tabulator, because now you've just voted for your test. So that's why we put it in the envelope, right? We want to make sure that it functions, but we're not going to count that ballot. And then going to lock all the doors, roll up the tape, place the tabulator in public view, and the head judge will likely maintain the key. Okay, two judges are going to verify ballot quantities. I'm going to say I sent you 2,000 ballots. Ballots are packed in packages of 50. And so if I said I sent you 2,000, you're initially going to count packages of 50, 50, 100, 150. Make sure you've got the 2,000. Then, as packages are opened, you're going to count the ballots individually. I slice the cellophane. Now I've got to count, make sure there's 50 in there. And if there's not, we're going to record that. So here's the ballot. And then it says two judges initial a supply of ballots. There is a spot up in the corner where two judges. This does not need to be two judges of different parties. This just needs two judges. It's an initial. It's just proof that this is a legitimate precinct ballot. Make sure that you keep your initial just nice and tidy on the line, because we had at a precinct, someone had this nice slooping L, and they would whip that thing down there, and they got, if any mark gets outside of the line, the ballot won't go through the machine. So then the voter needs a new ballot. And if that judge marked 50 of them with their initials that way, they have 50 ballots that virtually can't go through the machine. So if you are responsible for marking your initials, just keep them nice and small on the line. And then, as I said, any discrepancies in the package will be indicated on the incident log. And this is right up here. So, yeah, the first package had one less, the second package had one less, the third one two less, fourth one plus one. You do that throughout the day. If there's any discrepancies, at the end of the day, you'll come up with your total. You add the pluses, you add the minuses, you see what the difference is, because we are going to say, I sent you this many ballots, this many went through the machine, and you have to reconcile it to the ballot, what is left. And that's why we need to track it that way.
I have a question.
Yes.
Don't open all the packets and initial them right away.
That's correct. Your head judge will direct how many packets to be opened. We send you way more ballots than you need. You will only be opening the number of packets that your head judge feels is necessary for you to get through the election. Because at the end of the day, if I sent you 2,000 and you needed only 200, you are counting by individual ballot. Otherwise, you could count 50, 100. You can count those extra packets that weren't open to reconcile. Okay, the next thing is 2 judges have to verify the accuracy of the ballot. You will be given a sample ballot. It's always in color. You're going to borrow an official ballot from your ballot judge, and 2 judges are going to compare. Yep, I'm going to read through it, make sure they match line for line, item for item, question for question, candidate for candidate. And if so, then you are going to place one where it is easily visible front and back for somebody standing, and then you'll place one that's easily visible for somebody in a wheelchair. Now, our ballot for the primary does not have a back, so you'll just have one front up high and one front down low. At the general, certainly you will have the place front and back. So the precinct equipment and ballot certification sheet. I fill out the top. I said, here's the numbers that I sent you, that very top line. These are the seal numbers. I sent you 40 packages, 52,000 ballots. I sign it. I'm saying that's what I'm giving you. The people in the morning come in, they look, say, oh yeah, those are our seal numbers. And then, so that's question 1. You write down, oh, it matches what Pam said. Number 2 is, how many packages of ballots did we get? Oh, we had 40 packages. Oh, that matches what Pam said. Number 3 is, the official ballot matches the sample ballot. What did you do? You checked it. You're going to say yes, it matches. Circle yes. And the last one is, the official ballot matches the assistive voting technology. And of course, it is going to match. And the judges in the morning are going to go ahead and sign. And at the end of the day, got to remember where I'm at. That's the signing. Oh, did anybody change our seals? Oh, no, they're still the same. Okay, we're going to write it down, and the judges at the end of the day are going to say, yep, everything is the same, we're good. All right, that's what the precinct equipment and ballot certification sheet is all about. Okay, you need to have a clear access route at your polling place. Make sure that it's easily accessible for folks in a wheelchair. Post directional arrows from outside from the first entrance into your polling place room. You're going to post various posters and maps that I give you. It's required by law to be up. Your head judge will direct who's going to be responsible for that and where those things go. There needs to be at least one voting station at table height with a chair, a handicap booth. You need to place 2 chairs outside your polling room for folks who are unable to stand. That is the law, so make sure that they are there. There must be a flag outside your entrance, and the polls must be open by 7 a.m. Who is allowed in the polling place? Representatives from the Secretary of State's, County Auditor, and City Clerk's office. Obviously, you are. Election judges, voters and their children, persons assisting or vouching, challengers, media, and if someone from the media comes, you direct them to the head judge. The head judge is going to ensure that they have a photo ID and media credentials or a written statement from an election office. They must be maintained 6 feet away from the tabulator, and they are not able to converse with voters or make lists. Who is not allowed in the polling place, or what is not allowed? Disorderly conduct, intoxication, smoking. Watch for newspapers, and the only reason we say that is because campaign materials are not permitted. Oftentimes, like I said, near election times, there's ads or whatever for various candidates in the newspaper. Voters may take a sample ballot for their own personal use, like from a newspaper, because we have to post sample ballots in the paper, and they maybe fill it out and say, I'm going to just bring this in so when I go to vote, I know how I want to fill it out. Just watch for that, because they might have left it in the booth, okay? And so we wouldn't want to try to influence somebody else by that. So what is not allowed in the polling place or within 100 feet of the building or on public property at all is no campaigning, no campaign materials or signs, no lingering, no solicitation of voters. So, in your red folder, I provided you a pink handout. This is information as provided from the Secretary of State's office relative to the United States Supreme Court's decision on wearing campaign material. I'm going to let you read this in its entirety in your home. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I just want to summarize it for you. What it says is, because what they determined is, how do you know when it's campaign material? So anything that's trying to influence a voter is still off guard, is off limits. But of particular importance, if it's anything that has to do with a candidate who is currently on the ballot, that would be prohibited. So if you have a T-shirt or materials that say it's for a Tea Party or for the Green Libertarians or something, we only have DFL and Republican on the primary ballot. So those would be permitted because they're not on the ballot, so how can it influence anybody how they're going to vote? You could even have, theoretically, you could have Trump, which, okay, we would understand that that would mean Republican, but he's not on the ballot. But if the candidate's name is on the ballot, that would be kind of where they're drawing the line. Now, come the general election, some of the names that would be permitted at the primary, because there's more other candidates and different parties, those would not be permitted. But take a look and read that. That, like I said, is directly from the Secretary of State's office. If by chance somebody comes in and has something that your head judge feels is inappropriate, they are going to ask them to cover it up or to remove it. You know, if they're holding a flyer or, you know, doing something, campaigning in some way, holding a sign, they would say, you know, you can't campaign here within the polling place. If they would say, it is against the law, and we are going to allow you to vote, but we are going to record your name and report it to the proper authorities. Because what we don't want is judges to have that confrontation. It's our obligation to inform them that it isn't appropriate, but we're not having you be responsible for the confrontation. Oh, that's my friend Chatty Cathy. I gotta turn this down. It just must default all the time to there. Yes, go ahead.
Solicitation of voters on the way in or on the way out? I know it would be on the way in, but if somebody's taking a poll.
Well, it's a good thing you just asked that, because I'm going to speak about that in just here 1 second, and I don't know where I got. I must have clicked too far. And am I on a different setting again? Okay. One exception to that rule regarding lingering is the individual conducting the exit poll. And routinely, we will have at least one of those at the general election here in Apple Valley. They cannot conduct the exit poll within the polling place, but must be 100, can be, but yeah, within 100 feet from the building. They may only approach voters after they have voted, and they may only take an anonymous written questionnaire. Okay. All right, so greeter judge. We're not going to probably use that at the primary, but you will probably use it at the general. Just a couple quick things. You observe activities near the poll entrance. If you are assigned that at the general, you maintain traffic flow. You determine if a voter is in the correct precinct. You could either use a poll pad at that time or a greeter's list. And a greeter's list is the exact same thing as the old roster. If you're a veteran judge, you know what that is, except there's not a place to sign. what does the roster registration judge do? So if you're a former election judge, you're saying, oh no, the registration people, they've got way more stuff to do, and that's more complicated. It is. We are directed to have everybody do it all together, and anytime you have to register someone, you're going to call for the assistance of your head judge or whoever your head judge has assigned as a savvy registration person to assist you as you go through that process, all right? So some of the things you're going to do is you're going to ask the voter's name, address, and or birthday to verify they are pre-registered, or you're going to register that voter. You're going to address roster notations. AB means absentee ballot, challenges, and CID, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You're going to notify a voter of their oath and instruct them to sign the certificate to affirm their oath. And the certificate that gets printed is very small, but you will have these blue forms that say the exact same language as the certificate, and you can ask them to read this instead of the certificate. It's a lot easier for them to read. And then you're going to give your voters an initialed voter receipt. And what is a voter receipt? It's like a ticket to get a ballot. And that's what it looks like. We want you to put your initials on it, and what we have determined is I want everybody to put their initials on the left side, and the reason is at the end of the night, if we have to count, we don't have to look at the whole thing, we can just flip through all on one side to make sure they have the initials, okay? And then on the right side for precinct 5A, some of our old forms, this one doesn't have spots, but some of our old forms do, and the initials are on the left and the school district numbers on the right. Only just precinct 5A needs to record which school district, because they're going to have two different ballot types, and I need to make sure the voter gets the proper one. Okay, if registering a voter asks, you're going to have to ask the voter the required questions, and it's like, are you 18 years old? Are you a United States citizen? What's your address? I just want you to know a P.O. box is not an acceptable address, and then you'll have to get required information that they need to register. There may be in-person challengers, and who can challenge a voter? Election judges, you can. A person appointed by a major political party, persons appointed by candidate mayor or the board of a school district, or a voter could challenge. A challenger must be a Minnesota resident. They must show their ID. They may only challenge a voter's eligibility to vote in the precinct, and they may only be made based on personal knowledge. They will need to complete an oath of challenge. So if I come in and say I challenge that Susie Smith over here is not able to vote, I must fill out a form. First of all, I can't go, hey, Susie Smith, you can't vote. If somebody says, I don't think that person's supposed to vote, if they want to make that challenge, they have to speak to the head judge. They'll have to complete a form. So it says they cannot converse with voters. They can't approach within 6 feet of the ballot counter. They can't take photographs. They cannot vouch for new residents. They can't handle, inspect, or damage election materials, and they can't make lists or interfere with the election process. If a challenger says, Susie Smith, I was at her wedding 6 months ago, and I know she moved to Wisconsin, so she can't vote here in Apple Valley anymore. And Susie Smith says, oh, yes, I can, because my husband was a jerk, and I've already divorced him, and I'm back home with my mother. You don't have to tell the challenger that, but the head judge will ask the question, do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth? And, yep, and are you entitled to vote here? She says yes. Her challenge has been met. The voter versus a challenger, the voter always wins. The voter gets to determine. Now, your head judge is going to record that in the incident log, and someone at Dakota County may look it up and say, hey, was Susie Smith able to vote here? So that's that, but that's how we handle those challenges. Challenge can be made. The head judge is going to address the voter. If there's a discrepancy in the end, the voter prevails. And this is what the oath of challenge form looks like. Okay, this is the most complex part, and a lot of times you didn't have to do this because we had separate registration judges. I need everybody to think and try to remember all this stuff. So there's a green sheet in your packet. I'm going to talk about this There will be one of these sheets out where your registration is as well. And the information is also in your guide. But if someone needs to register, there's 3 ways in general that they can register. 3 groups. The first one is the very easy one. Here on the left side, is that they have an ID with a current name and address. That's easy. Current ID with a current name and address. What could those IDs be? Could be a valid Minnesota only driver's license, a Minnesota learner's permit, a Minnesota ID card, or a receipt for one. And it must have the deputy seal stamp if it's the receipt. Or it could be a tribal ID with signature and picture issued by a tribal government. Okay, that's easy peasy. The second category or group is a photo ID plus a document with a current name and address. So the photo ID has to have the voter's name and photo, but it may be expired and or it may have a former address, okay? So the type of documents the type of IDs you could use in that instant is this: a state driver's license, ID card, or learner's permit from any state, not just Minnesota. The first one was Minnesota only. The second one is any state. A U.S. passport, a U.S. military or veteran ID, a student ID from a Minnesota college, university, technical college, or high school, or a tribal ID with name, signature, and picture. So in the second category, you need that plus, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't move that forward for you. You also need a document, and the document must have the voter's current name and address within the precinct, and it may be delivered electronically or by mail. So, what kind of documents would that be? It would be a residential lease or rental agreement valid through election day. So it can't be, yeah, my lease from 6 years ago when I lived in Apple Valley. It has to show that, it's current. Or current student fee statement. It could be a bill, account, or start of service statement due or dated within 30 days of the election with the voter's name, not my spouse's name, my name, and my address. And what kind of bills could those be? Phone, landline, cell, voice over internet protocol, TV, cable, satellite, internet services, solid waste or sewer services, electric, gas, water, banking, or credit card statement, rent, or mortgage. Remember, due within 30 days of the election, before or after, so virtually a 60-day window, if it has their current address and their name, and due within that 60-day kind of window, plus that other ID. I just moved from Iowa. I didn't get my driver's license changed yet, but here's my bill for whatever. Okay, so that's section number 2. Yes?
Some states issue driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. So, we would allow them to vote?
If it is a state-issued ID and it has that data, that is what our law provides.
The first question that would be, are you a U.S. citizen? Before you even get to ID, you already would have had an answer whether they're a U.S. citizen.
And when we get to the registration, but yes, you're right. I was just covering the IDs, but that's correct, Mary. Thank you for bringing that up. They have to swear to the fact that they are a United States citizen. Okay, the third group is the alternates. Over here. I don't have that up there, I'm just here. So, notice of late registration on the roster at a former address in the precinct, on the roster with a former name in the precinct. They must have a valid Minnesota student ID with a name on a post-secondary education housing list, which we do not have, but I'm required to tell you about it. And vouching, and there's 2 types of vouching. So, I'm going to tell you about both of them. First of all, what is vouching? It's somebody who's going to provide an oath to you who is a registered voter in the same precinct, swearing that they know that this person lives here. Okay. So, you'll need to check the poll pad or greeters list to ensure that the voucher is registered. They have to be registered in your precinct. The voucher must have personal knowledge of the residence of the person they are vouching for. The vouch for voter cannot vouch. Challengers cannot vouch. An election judge, you may vouch if you're registered in your precinct. And a voucher can only vouch for up to 8 people, and there's a way that we will track that. And this is it. So Susan Smith comes in, I have to look up, make sure she's registered. We write down her voter ID. Yep, she vouched for 1 person. Joe Jackson, registered for 5. Once they hit 8, that's it, okay? So you will be tracking that at the end of the day. The head judge signs it. So that's the average person who comes in. Then we have did I go backwards? We have the oath of a certified employee of a residential facility. So in your polling place, or in your polling precinct supplies, I'm going to provide you a list of people who are, a facility has told us are their employees. So if that person comes to your site with, like for example at Augustana, it's a polling place, they have a number of employees that work there, they can bring down as many people as they want to, because the facility has said they work here and it's their job on election day to bring our residents down to vote. And a lot of those people, they don't have driver's license anymore, they don't have other forms of ID, but they've got employee. So no other ID is required. If it is a certified employee, they may vouch for an unlimited number of residents in their facility. And if they're not on the list but can demonstrate that they work there, if they've got a badge, if they've got a pay stub or something, you would be allowed to let them vote for somebody. Who is ineligible to vote? A convicted felon whose civil rights have not been restored, an individual under court-ordered guardianship where the right to vote is revoked, an individual who has been found by court to be legally incompetent to vote. And how would you know? You wouldn't. So when people come in to vote, it is your job, if you're manning the roster, when you give them the certificate, you ask them to read the oath to affirm that they are a citizen, that they're entitled to vote, that their felony rights, all of that stuff is in there. And if they sign, that is on them. They sign that with that stipulation that if they have given false information, it is punishable by up to 5 years in prison, $10,000, and or both. Okay, demonstration judge uses demonstration ballot. For the primary in particular, you want to speak to people as you hand out ballots, because if you cross over, it's going to want to kick out of the machine, right? You can only vote on one side or the other. You can't vote on both. A crossover negates all the votes on the partisan portion. At the general election, you're going to talk about write-ins. You're going to explain how to exchange a ballot if a mistake is made. So if someone makes a mistake on a ballot, they're going to bring it back to you, and you're going to put it in the spoiled ballot envelope, and you're going to give them a new one. People in Precinct 5A, make sure that you're looking to see what school district ballot they had so that you give them the correct exchange. All the other precincts, you only have the one. 2 election judges are going to initial and store ballots. You're going to collect voter receipts. You're going to pack and bind them in packs of 55. You're going to issue ballot, or 25. What did I say? 55, 25, yes. That's, oh, I'm so glad I got such good judges keeping. Oh, you had to recount them. So it is important to make sure we count them accurately, because at the end of the night, 25, 50, you're counting them. Want to make sure that they are correct. You are looking for that initial. You are going to put the ballots inside a secrecy sleeve. This is what a secrecy sleeve looks like. There is a spot here that you can tell the judge to hold it here. A lot of times they want to hold it here. They go on and put it in. It won't slide through, but this is how you're going to disperse your ballots. And then you're going to tell them to use a specific ballot pen that we've provided. Other pens can mar up this machine and make it not record properly. You're going to invite a voter to use a booth or table or the assistive voting equipment. The other thing, if you're on ballots, make sure that you fan your ballots after you take them out of your packet. You've counted them to 50. You're going to fan this side, you're going to fan that side, fan all the sides, because the biggest problem we have with counting is by chance you grab 2 ballots and put 2 in there and they're trying to put it in, jams up. Sometimes you come back and say, you gave me 2 ballots. So it's your job to make sure that you fan. They've cut through these big stacks and kind of pinches the edges together, so make sure you fan. Exchanging spoiled ballots. If a voter makes a mistake, you put it in that spoiled ballot envelope, you issue them a new ballot. You monitor your supply. If you get less than 100, up to only 100 ballots left, make sure you let your head judge know. If a ballot is found in a ballot booth, someone's voting and they get an emergency phone call and they walk away and say, oh, I don't care, I'm just leaving it. If you find that ballot, you're going to mark it found in booth, you put it in a spoiled ballot envelope, and it gets recorded on the incident log. The ballot counter ICE tabulator judge remains 6 feet away. The law now does allow you to get within the 6 feet, but we recommend you stay 6 feet away. There is going to be a piece of string in your supplies that you can help mark where that area is so that you can stay out of that boundary as much as possible. You instruct voters how to insert the ballot in, respond to ballot error messages, you address stuck and return ballots, you distribute I voted stickers. Do not slap it on somebody's chest. Give them a ballot or the I voted sticker they put on themselves. At any time during the day, if things don't seem like they're going in good, the head judge might say, let's just take the ballots out. It seems like we're getting a lot of jams. 2 judges, 2 different parties can remove the ballots at any time during the day. There are 4 basic orientations. So front, back, it takes it any way. If someone puts it in and it won't take it, just have them try it again. The biggest issue that we experience is this, is instead of, they're holding it here instead of here. If it won't go in, they're trying to insert it, have them just feed it out a little bit more, okay? And if they can, if they're, if you're standing back, no one can see it anyway. These are a long ballot, so we might have a little bit of issue with them going in. We're also providing everybody the green sheets. If you tape it on your ice machine, I want it down lower than the place where you put in, so it's not any interference at all, but it just helps a regular voter see very easily, this is where I put it in. They come up here and it's like, where do I put it? That will help them to identify that. Okay, if a ballot is not accepted, ask the voter to remain. Let the voter read the message. Discreetly explain the message to the voter if asked. And then they have 2 options. This is not in voting mode right now, but there's 2 buttons here. This one will normally light up green when we're in election mode, and it's cast. So maybe it gets a message that says you cross-voted. So it gives the voter a warning so they can get it back, exchange it, so that they can mark their ballot appropriately so it can be counted. But if they say, oh, you know what, I got to pick my kids up, I don't have time, I just want to cast it, they can hit this green button that says cast and it will take it anyway. Or if it says something, they want it returned, there's a red button here that will return it. Never look at the voter's ballot, respect their privacy. If a voter requests help, 2 judges from 2 different political parties must review and advise, okay? They say, I'm looking at my ballot, I don't see what's wrong with it. At that point, you need 2 judges. Yes?
So if it's casting the ballot, it's not being counted, though, is that correct?
If the warning message says that it's cross-voted, anything that's in a partisan vote, if that's what it is, would not count. That's correct. And then here's where I talked about you can use the green icon. There are sometimes you'll get a message that says ambiguous mark. That means that the voter by accident, maybe they just rusted their pen, made it mark around the outside. Even if they want to cast that one, it will never go through. So they would need to spoil that ballot and get a new one. If the equipment stops working, what do? You don't stop. You open up the auxiliary compartment. Remember, that's that back area that I told you about. You call City Hall right away. You keep trying to work to get it working. You record the information. Your head judge will record that on the incident log. And then you'll leave those ballots in the compartment till the end of the day, or for sure when somebody, thank you, is not around, because it looks kind of funny if two judges are feeding ballots into the tabulator, even if you have to by law. But anytime you're doing ballots, two judges, each of the two different parties. And then the accessible voting equipment, just want to touch on that real briefly. That is available for, it was designed to assist voters with special needs. It's tethered to the ballot counter. It's set up for privacy. Any voter can use it. It's required by law. And if needed, the head judge will activate it for a session. Who can assist voters in the polling place? They can bring anyone they want to help them. No person except for you as a judge can assist more than 3 voters, and a voter may ask a judge for assistance. And if they do, it requires 2 judges of 2 different parties. Yeah, I don't want to use that equipment. Will somebody just help me? If they want help and need help marking a ballot, you can. Who cannot assist a voter? The voter's employer, an agent of the voter's employer, an officer, agent of the voter's union, or a candidate in the election who may assist voters. Also, a voter may bring a person of their choice into the polls to assist themselves in marking the ballot. Oh, I went backwards again. Okay, if anybody comes in with an absentee ballot, they cannot drop that off at the polling place. You can tell them they can bring it to City Hall by 3 o'clock, or you could spoil it there, and you could just allow them to vote. And if a voter can't get out of the car and into the polling place, what do? Or they come in and your head judge will instruct 2 judges of 2 different political parties how they can assist the voter wishing to vote from their vehicle, and that would be recorded in the incident log. And if you didn't know that, yes, that is a service that is provided for. And I'm not going to talk about duplicating ballots. I'm going to take just one more minute to talk about closing the polls. At the end of the day, the head judge announces the polls are closed. Anyone standing in line still gets to vote. And before you close out the polls, you're going to check the auxiliary box to make sure there aren't any ballots that got put in there. Throughout the day, you will have been checking to make sure what's on the tabulator matches your receipts. You're comparing that. When the polls are closed, 3 results tapes are printed automatically. You'll print additional ones if needed. When it's time to power down, your head judge will know how to do this. Everything matches. If everything matches, you'll be snipping those wires. There's a plunger button, which means you have to push it in and it pops the flash card out. And then you'll put those cards into a compact flash card envelope, which then gets returned to City Hall. That's where the results of your precinct are. We want you to pack everything up. You're going to have to fill out a variety of forms. Make sure you pack it up nicely and neatly. You're going to be using it again at the general election. The summary statement worksheet, I'll be going over with your head judges. And you'll need to complete a timesheet, and the head judges return everything to the city. So that is everything very condensed, my 3 hours into a 1-hour session. We are going to take about a 5-minute break. When we return, I have got poll pads set up. They are marked Precinct 1, Red Rock, Precinct 2, Senior Center, all across in numerical order. If you are not a head judge, and if you are an AM or all-day person, and you work at Precinct 1, you have a chance to sit there. Precinct 2, you'd sit there. The reason I don't want my head judges there is because one head judge is going to be setting up this equipment, and one head judge is going to be coordinating everything else. And I need you as judges to become familiar with working on this. So 16 people will have an opportunity to work hands-on on the poll pads. We will have a switch halfway through, and 16 more people will get a chance to have the hands-on. Two more things. Do I have anybody who's really technically savvy, good with iPads here? Any hands? Okay. I've got 3 helpers. If I could have you at one of the tables to help people who maybe might need some help, I would really appreciate that. The other thing is, you will be able to stand behind and watch if you want to do that a little bit. So I'm going to encourage that. When we get back, I'll give you some few more instructions about being really quiet and staying with me. But before we go, I need these people to stop in and see my HR folks. Pam Linseth, Susan Mittling, Sharon Nygaard, Steve Rains, and Muriel Gilbertson. And then go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in just a little bit.